And right across Europe, there have been protests over the last week. As I say, we're going to cover that. The protests were not just about cost of living, but they were also about NATO and neutrality, the war in Eastern Europe, things like that. You want to touch, first of all, you attended the launch of the Irish Neutrality League last week. Can you give us any feedback on that, Bodil?
Yeah, it was encouraging. There's about 100 people there, coming from different groups. Seeing is there any type of working consensus there for people to move forward on. It's a positive thing. Like there are individual independent groups out there too, but like it's good to see that there is some actual public figures getting involved now, and it was quite a good information wise. There was some good speakers at it. And really, it's quite opposed to the narrative that you're seeing from the government parties at the moment. We've seen again this week, we've seen Coveney and we've seen Bourne from Fianna Fáil both talking up Ireland and military involvement in both cases. So, like, really, I think we need to step up now. We're done probably analysing it. It's now time to actually get out there and really let them know that Ireland doesn't accept being sleepwalked into military alliances. Like, we are a neutral country and that's the end of it, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, certainly I was seeing some positivity in that. So let's see what comes out of it maybe in the next couple of weeks.
I saw a news item, can't recall exactly where I saw it, a few days ago, which just said briefly that the EU ambassadors had collectively decided, without any objection or without any vote against or abstentions, had collectively decided to train Ukrainian forces. And I said to myself, I wonder if Ireland's included in that, because I remember seeing a similar announcement in which transpired that we had committed to the rebuilding of a region in northwestern Ukraine. And so, sure enough, a couple of days later, it came out in the Irish media, Ireland to take part in EU training mission for Ukrainian forces, Coveney. And looking into this, they say it's about mine and demining and stuff like that. I am pretty confident that there are already Irish military personnel over there operating on behalf of the Ukrainian military in some fashion. I've no doubt about that. But this seems to be a public confirmation that we are just moving into doing that overtly and publicly into the future. What's your opinion on this?
It's interesting what Thomas Bourne had to say. He said public opinion may not be ready for membership of the US-led NATO alliance yet. So he's speaking in terms of we'll get it in the end is what he's alluding to there. And Coveney, he said Ireland has said that we want to be part of this. I don't remember that from there.
No. In fact, every vote ever taken in Ireland, even at times when the public has been wound up as much as possible and emotionally blackmailed, even at those times, the Irish population, the polls have always shown that massive support for neutrality, because this is what they're trying to get us into. US rehearses dropping nuclear bombs in Europe. On Monday, the NATO military alliance will hold a training exercise known as Steadfast Noon, in which USB, and this happened on Monday, US B-52 bombers and F-16 fighters will simulate dropping atomic bombs over Europe amid a deepening nuclear standoff with Russia. But Russia has time and again reiterated it has no interest in a nuclear confrontation. The training exercises come just 10 days after US President Joe Biden warned of a nuclear apocalypse, saying the risk of nuclear war is the greatest since the Cuban Missile Crisis. So this is being done by NATO. And this is what we have been asked to support. People who just don't seem to have any grip on reality, on life, that they're bringing us to such an edge. And I'm very concerned what the near future holds for this. And I have every confidence that the Irish people will not fall for the neutrality trick of actually abandoning neutrality openly and in a constitutional fashion for a referendum. But I am concerned that they will allow the less than covert support of Ukraine's military, which is taking part in a side rather than calling for peace. So although people may not vote in a referendum to abandon our neutrality, there seems to be an acceptance of what's happening at the moment. and our growing involvement with NATO, which we already participate in at least one other NATO program in which they regularly audit the Irish military. So we are participating in some NATO programs already.
On the question of a referendum, what's your thoughts on that? Do you believe it's something that we should look at?
I do. Again, we would have a lot of money pumped in to support the yes side, the yes to join NATO or yes to abandon neutrality side. It's just obvious. It's what they do all the time. And especially with the EU, NATO, the United States, the UK, they would all have an interest. And all of these so-called private NGO organizations, many of them would have a keen interest in putting pressure on the Irish public. I do believe in democracy, but I'd be worried about how fair a campaign and how fair and balanced a debate would be given to the people of Ireland to make up their mind. But still, I have a confidence that ultimately, it might be tight in the end, but ultimately the Irish people would vote against such a change.
Well, it's interesting because at the launch of at the launch of the organisation the other day, it was represented by People Before Profit and Sinn Féin. If we're talking in terms of Sinn Féin being the most viable opposition, well, surely then their policies will be in line with opposing any change to our neutrality. In fact, probably reinforcing it and enshrining it in the constitution via referendum. So that's got to be their approach to it. So maybe it is the safe thing to do. I would have concerns myself about how would it actually go when campaigning goes against you in terms of the money, like you say, the money being put in on the mainstream media's attempts to portray this as a good selling point. I'm very wary of that, very wary of that.